I'm sorry if the lighting and the audio was a little weird in this video at the moment. I'll admit I forgot my mic, but I'm on vacation. I like taking a week off at least once a year to just go camping for my birthday. And by camping, I hate sleeping on the ground. I do hate sleeping on the ground, and I'm not the biggest fan of tents just because of that reason. So I converted my van. I converted my van into just a little camper van. So like this bed is very comfy. I have storage for everything I need. I have food storage for like a good 4 or 5 days straight. I'm great. I love coming out here and just hanging out for a good long weekend, a good Monday to Friday stretch. It's also kind of windy today. It is a little windy today. So if the audio is weird, that might also be why, but it hasn't rained on me yet. It hasn't rained yet. It did rain a bit last year, and I kind of hope it rains. It's nice when it rains. But anyway, we are here to talk about books and to do my spring wrap up because the timing just always kind of works out at the end of May. I will also admit at the end of like recording this for myself as well, I'm probably going to stash my phone away for the rest of the week, so I'm not even going to really touch this. I brought more books with me. I brought a cross-stitching project with me. I just like going for walks around the little pond here. But anyway, settling into the actual, spring wrap-up at the moment, for me that basically consists of what I read during the months of like March, April, and May. And back in March, I finished Mockingjay, and I started and finished Sunrise on the Reaping, and I started Blackwood Farm. The timeline is a little weird in between those last two, but I'll get to that in a second, because with Mockingjay, I'm realizing, thinking back on it now, it's still good. I still really enjoyed it, and it's a good ending. But I kind of think I like the first one better. I think I mentioned that in my last video, so I don't know if this is like a new take. I don't remember now, but I liked the first one better. I will also admit, with Mockingjay 2, I kind of think I liked the adaptation better. I really enjoyed those movies. I loved all of the movies. They were good, like, adaptations. But for Mockingjay, the pacing just felt a little bit tighter, which is weird because it was also broken up into, like, 2 parts when it kind of didn't really need to, but also, like, it fit really well into 2 parts. And I like the changes they did without actually, like, cutting anything, thematically or dynamically. They didn't have to remove anything to put in new stuff. No, they just altered a couple of things, and it was totally fine. The fact that Effie was in the last movie really did help. And then after Mockingjay, I picked up Blackwood Farm, which I've got a whole little series going on right now of like rereading the Vampire Chronicles, bit by bit, point by point, book by book. And I'll get to that in a second because, because I started Blackwood Farm, but I put it aside when Sunrise on the Reaping came out. So yeah, Sunrise on the Reaping, also by Suzanne Collins, was published back in March, and yeah, I was going to put aside Blackwood Farm to pick up the book of the tragic backstory beloved side character, because of course I am. And I loved it. I loved Sunrise. It hurt me so well, and I knew it was going to hurt me. It was still dynamic in its own way. It was still interesting and provided, sure, the same themes of like the Hunger Games, but it was still like grinding salt into the wound. And which is interesting as well, because the pacing for Sunrise was so much faster than Mockingjay. Mockingjay dragged at a couple of points, but which I kind of think was intentional, just based on Katniss's, like, mental health space at the time. But while in Mockingjay, the pacing was a little slower, just trying to, like, condense my thoughts a little bit, get a hold of them. While the pacing in Mockingjay was slower, the pacing in Sunrise on the Reaping was so much faster. We were like sprinting through that story. We were going point for point for point, beat for beat. And it still had the same, concepts, the same, like, thematic through line and everything. But it was so much faster, and I kind of think a little bit to the detriment of the story, because the pacing was so much faster in Sunrise. I think there were a lot of characters to kind of reconnect with, and also like be introduced to as well, and I kind of think it was to the detriment of Lenore Dove and that little like romance there. It was fine, but I feel like it didn't have as much weight as it could have. Because the pacing was so much faster, and we had to get to the games like kind of quickly, Lenore Duff's character was a little underdeveloped. But of those two, Mockingjay and Sunrise, I would probably pick up Sunrise first to do like a reread. Yeah, no, that sounds right. Now, after I finished Sunrise on the Reaping, I went back to Blackwood Farm by Anne Rice, and I did not have a good time. I did not have a good time on Blackwood Farm, and I don't want to relive that. So there's like a link to the video I already made about Blackwood Farm. I didn't have a good time. But if you want to know my thoughts, you can find out why. So moving on over into April then, I think it was a bit of a slower month for me. I think because I was kind of fighting off a reading slump. But in that month, I read Tropic of Serpents by Marie Brennan and Rogue Protocols by Martha Wells. I'm stuttering a lot today. And both of them were just good. I had a good time with those, and I appreciated getting into a novella because I think that helped with the reading slump as well. So Tropic of Serpents by Marie Brennan still had that like 18th century period piece vibe that I'm going for, but you know, with dragons. With questions of like colonialism and European type characters integrating themselves the right way into an African culture. Like, there's a bigger discussion to be had here that I feel like I'm not qualified for, but I'm excited to research it more and explore more of it. And as for Rogue Protocol, I didn't make a full video of it, but I didn't know it was gonna hurt me that much. And I want to keep things like spoiler free, but I did still have like a good time with it and everything. And I will admit, for me, I think for the Murderbot Diaries, I need to write like notes, because there's a lot of individual names that are changing novella to novella, a lot of corporations being introduced, a lot of other groups being introduced, a lot of like planets being mentioned. I feel like I need to take notes just to make sure I know where we're at. And like, for some reason, I can track like Game of Thrones houses and like little mini groups in the Game of Thrones Westeros totally fine. But when it's in a sci-fi setting, I think I start overthinking things and I start getting the wires crossed. No pun intended. But I want to hug Murderbot so badly, with their consent, of course, which they might not give, you know, due to like anxiety, which is totally fine. I get that. That brings us over to May now, where I started and finished Blood Canticle, which I did like better than Blackwood Farm, but I made a whole video on that one as well already for like my overall thoughts on Blood Canticle. Still not good, but better than Blackwood Farm. I won't give it much, but I'll give it that. I don't think I'll ever reread those two again. That being said, I brought Prince Lestat. I brought Prince Lestat as my backup book. From what I remember, it's not a perfect return to form of like the OG books, but at the same time, I think it's at least going back to that like Anne Rice version of normal. And I do remember it being stronger than the previous two, at least. But at least my boy is coming back. Our Vampy boy is coming back. I'm excited to get into this one. Now, he's the backup book. Lestat is the backup book because I'm in the middle of Crooked Kingdom by Leigh Bardugo. And little more than, actually 2/3. Little more than 2/3 of the way through right now. And oh, I'm having a good time. I screamed at these pages twice already. And yeah, it's still cool. I'm still having a great time with it. I am simultaneously yelling at these pages, kind of loving, seeing everything fall apart, but also wishing for their happiness. We all know that I love tragic characters, right? This has that in spades. So yeah, that is my like season of reading at the moment, and I will admit I do need to wrap this up at the moment because the van is closed up, all the doors are closed because I'm self-conscious of people like hearing me when I talk and there's people walking around. But it's getting a little hot in here, so I kind of need to open the doors again. But in summer, just for like a future TBR, I'm hoping to finish up The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes by Suzanne Collins. I'm a little dubious about getting into Snow's story. I mean, I will, just to kind of polish off the 5 of them, but like, I don't know how much I'm going to really enjoy it. We'll see, though. And I also want to finish up the latest Mark Lawrence trilogy, The Book That Held Her Heart, I think it's called. I am excited for that one. I will admit, I remember what happened in the previous books of, like, the Mark Lawrence trilogy, but given years of, you know, in between publications, I am so glad that Mark Lawrence does this thing where he'll put little bullet points of what happened in the last 2 books at the beginning of the first book. So, like, he's the only author I know who's done that. I kind of wish more would do that. Just a nice little, like, recap, a little refresh, rather than having to worry about, like, reading this one book 3 years ago. But I also want to reread Realms of Atlantis by Anne Rice as well. I don't know if I'm going to make a full video on that one. I might kind of lump Realms of Atlantis and Blood Communion? The last book, the last Anne Rice Chronicles book, together, only because I already have a video up here of the Realms of Atlantis when I first read it a while back. So I might kind of like combine those 2 videos, but that's for later. We'll cross that bridge when we come to it. Anyway, yeah, feel free to like and subscribe. I will admit, if you have any questions on like the van, on the camper van, I would love to talk about it. I love my little van. It's so convenient having a camper van like this that I can just like take to the office day job. I can take naps on my lunch and like be real comfy. And I hope that you all take a small vacation as well for yourself. Even a little stay-at-home staycation. Take time for yourself. Sometime this year. I know I needed to slow down. I don't think he heard me. Anyway, yeah, bye.